Welcome to Ride Along Live. As you're coming, guys, go ahead and share up the program, and invite a friend, invite a few friends. It's Ride Along Live for today, Monday. Very interesting program lineup for you guys. Very interesting program lineup for you. So go ahead and share up the program right now. Put it on a page, invite a few friends as we get this sorted out and get started right now.
After 2 years, we are back. One stage, over 20 entertainers, all the elements of mass. It all comes to life.
Jab, not working on Juve.
Lava Man and friends, I am Mass. Limited early bird tickets are $30, regular tickets $45, VIP $300, more at the door. Get your tickets now. Tickets available at gotofed.com or all your regular box offices. Gates open 11 p.m. The ultimate mass experience. It's more paint, more powder, more mass. And after, it's the breakfast. Stay tuned for more details.
Welcome to Ride Along Live. Where's my camera? Right there. Welcome to Ride Along Live for today, guys. It's Monday. Monday on the ride. How you guys doing? I am happy to be back. Back inside of my studio, guys. Back here. Oh, man. It was, not to say that it wasn't fun in Grenada, right? Not to say that I didn't have a blast being outside in our remote studio in Grenada. It was definitely fun, but it's always nice to be back in this area right here. Nice little comfortable space. No mosquitoes and nothing like that, or they can't kick some me or nothing like that. Yeah, I'm happy to be back inside, man. Happy to be back. I ain't gonna lie. I'm happy to be back. Yes. And for those of you who follow the election season, the election fever, and all the broadcasts that we gave you on election, those of you who shared, those of you who liked, those of you who didn't like, those of you who criticized, today's show is a postmortem. It's a conversation on what transpired over the election period. I know, guys, and I said that during this election period, we'll have a lot. We'll make friends. We'll become, well, I ain't gonna say enemies. They will have disagreements, and you might find arguments. But after it all concluded, like today, we all should unify, and that's what we're trying to do right now. So today we have a list of panelists, a few of my friends who we invite to come and chat with us, because, you know, it's going to be a great conversation, hopefully. Joining us shortly, we have Mr. Peter Wickham. He's going to be joining us and chatting with us about the poll and what he believed went absolutely right, what he believed went not so right. We also have Mr. Kem Jones, who is en route right now to Carriacou, so he's on a boat, so he's going to be joining us shortly. In addition, we have Mr. Dwight Sampson, who is going to be joining us. And not forgetting as well, we have my good friend, John Calise, who is also going to be joining us live as well. So a full panel of discussion. And we're not forgetting you guys. we're not forgetting you, the viewers, the subscribers, who also going to be chiming in and chatting with us live. All right? Okay. Yes. How are you guys doing? Yes. Empress, big up yourself. Thank you so much. All right, so I just waiting 1 more minute, guys, to have my full cast. Until I see my full cast of guests, we're gonna bring them in. In the meantime, give you guys the opportunity to tell me where you guys are watching us from, where you locked on from, where are you right now? Where are you right now? Roland Williamson, big up yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Put up that flag, man. Put up that flag. Put up that flag. Put up that flag. Share the thing. Share the thing. Yeah. Share the thing. Hey, Juice B. Baldo, watching us from Guav Unit. You're out there in New Jersey. Thank you so much. London, Brooklyn, New York. Thank you, London and Brooklyn, New York. Big up all yourself. England, Sherry Noel from England. Thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you so much. New Jersey, Canada, Dominica, London, New Jersey, Grenville, North Carolina. Some part in Chi House. Montreal. I'm going to be in Montreal next week. Next week, I'm going to be in Montreal. Looking forward to see you guys in Montreal next week. Germany, New York. Abigail, Canada. Wow. It's like, I tell you, it's like when Ride Along come on, it's like the UN, it's like the United Nations. Somebody from everywhere. Ladigue, Toronto. Big up the folks in Ladigue. That's my area. Aruba, Canada. Brooklyn, New York. In my bed. Houston, Texas, Miami. Thank you so much, Miami. We appreciate you, Miami. Brooklyn in the house. Wow. Ladigue. Wow. You see what I'm saying? My folks and them in Ladigue, all you never let me down yet. Lacey J. Grenada. Shirley Grenada. Montreal, Miami, Grenville. Her Majesty's Prison. Sweden. Wow. Sweden. Wow. Pick up yourself, Sweden. Yes. Her Majesty's Prison. The folks that's watching us in Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. Welcome. Guys, I'm just waiting another minute or so to make sure that everyone on my panel is present on the panel, because I do believe that this discussion is really going to put a full good analysis on what just happened in the general election, right? In case you just started to follow the election and the coverage of the election, Grenada's election was held on the 23rd of June, just a few days ago. And we saw a victory for the National Democratic Congress, right? The new National Party led by Dr. Keith Mitchell lost the election by a total popular vote of over 28,000. We're going to talk about the numbers, because it's important to crunch the numbers and look at what the numbers were last election and look at where the numbers were this election, and also try to understand why and what happened. Were there a decrease, and what's the reason for the decrease? In addition, guys, it's important to look at the polls, because leading up to this election, there were many polls that was done. We did a poll. We had Dr. Pierre did a poll. We had Peter Wickham did polls, and some of the polls was on point, right on the money. Some of them didn't work out too well. We're gonna get into the numbers again and try to find out what happened with the polling data. All right, we got Kem back. Okay, so let's see. We got Kem back. Good. We got John Kelly's there. Okay, good. And we got my friend Dwight Sampson. So let's bring on my guest. And then we are going to, as soon as we have Peter Wickham, we're going to bring him in. Mr. Kem Jones, sir, you are on.
I am fine. I'm on the Osprey heading to Carriacou to express appreciation to the many people who have supported what I have been doing for the last 8 years. So I'm super fine. I'm extremely happy, and it's always a pleasure to be on your program and with Simpson, a very decent gentleman, and the other panelists. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Samson, my friend, how things? Samson, are you hearing me?
I'm good.
No, Samson, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Jump back out and come back in. Jump back out and come back in. Jump back out and come, Samson. Samson, jump back out and come back in, because we're not hearing you. All right? All right, guys. So we're now joined by, let me see if I can bring him in right now. Let me start him in right now, guys. Pardon the noise in the background. As I said, Kem is on the Osprey. Peter, are you there? All right, Peter,
I am, yes.
All right,
I'm here.
let's bring in Peter Wickham. See if we got it there. Peter, yes, there we go. Peter Wickham, so how you doing?
I'm good. Good to be with you. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, that's fine. That's fine. All right, so let's start this conversation, guys. You know, as I was saying earlier, we just recently concluded Grenada's election. Grenada's, which a lot of people deem was the mother of all election. Let's start with you, Mr. Peter Wickham.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, going into the election, I remember we speaking and we had this conversation, and you said, I remember I posed a question to you as it relates to the possible success of the NNP. In fact, I think I have a clip of the snippet of the conversation. It's like a quick snippet of the conversation that we had back then, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Have the New National Party, who is currently in power right now, had built that mechanism, and we have, well, you could say, a virtually new organized party, the NDC. Do you see any similarities or difference between what happened in Tobago and what possibly could happen in Grenada?
I'd like to think not, because I think what the NDC has done is rebranded, and I think what they've done is good in the context of the kind of challenges that they've been facing. Because, I mean, let's face it, they've been struggling with the same formula for a long time, and it hasn't been working. So I think by changing out, by bringing new leadership, by bringing leadership that is not politically tainted, leadership that wasn't alive when they had the Grenada Revolution, which has been a big part of Grenada politics for a while, and bringing fresh faces, what they've done is they're taking a bet that, look, they can take politics in a different direction, and I think good on them for having done it. I don't know whether the conversation is the same in places like Tobago, because in Tobago, what you saw is the old political structure coming forward, and you know, you're basically being remade, but with some of the same old faces. The Grenada thing is something completely new on the part of the NDC. No, my sense is that it won't work initially, but if they stick with it over time, then it can lead to something.
All right, so let's start with you, Mr. Peter Wickham. Analysis, and your analysis of would you agree that the analysis, oh, sorry, I took you out, Peter, sorry. Would you agree that the analysis, a lot of the analysis that was made going into the election was somehow incorrect? And what was the reason you think that a lot of pollsters got it so wrong?
Well, I mean, I don't know that there were a lot of pollsters. I don't know who were the pollsters that commented on the Grenada election, other than myself. I don't know. Who else was polling and commenting on the polls in the Grenada? Well,
they were private polls, not scientific polls as you did. Mm-hmm. They were private individuals that conducted polls. So as in terms of the scientific polls, I think you and Dr. Pierre were the only two who conducted a somewhat more, as I would say, scientific poll to the election, to the analysis.
I listened to Dr. Perry yesterday, but anyhow, let's talk about my thing. As far as polls are concerned, I polled Grenada in March of this year. I presented just yesterday. I wrote an article in the press in Barbados in giving information. So I polled in March of this year, which was quite some time ago. And at that time, I concluded that the NDC had strengthened from the previous time I polled it, which would have been in the previous October. So there was some strengthening. And my sense was that they were strengthening, but that at that time it would have been insufficient for it to have won an election. My analysis of the situation was basically that over time the NDC would have improved. No, I did not either publish or present any information from polls publicly because they were privately commissioned. But my analysis was that the NDC had strengthened, and I think in the comment just now you recognize that I said that I felt that it would be a long-term project because at that time there was no evidence that they were winning. It is clear that the NDC gained considerable momentum during the course of the election campaign, and I can say without reservation, I did 2 polls during the election campaign, and both of them were consistent with what we saw last night. Now, you can't take 2 polls out of 15 and assume that that's an indication, but it was clear that there was some momentum. One of the places we polled was actually Dickinson Mitchell's seat in St. David. When I polled that in March, he was not winning it. He was marginally behind. When we polled it last month in Grenada, during the course of the election campaign, he was well ahead. And I had concluded at that time that he would have won his seat. Now, all that information, as I said, was confidential. I can talk about it now. I don't think that my science let me down in any way. And I called my interviewers, and I told them I was very happy with the work that they did, both then, but previously. In terms of tracking it. I understand that Grenada, like many other places, well, basically when you're polling, you're speaking to an event in time, a particular point in time, and certainly in March of that point in time, the NNP was not winning. It is clear that the conversation changed and evolved considerably over time. What I feel needs to happen, and certainly in terms of all of these, if we're going to be polling and talking about elections, we have to be polling on an ongoing basis, like they do in the United States of America. My analysis, however, of the situation and the likely outcome had a lot more to do with the historic realities that I was seeing. And I saw a political organization that had clearly made some improvements, as I said in the clip, but a political organization which had a new leader who hadn't even been leading the organization for a year, for 8 months. My reading and my assessment was that he would not have succeeded. The reality is, however, that he did, and I congratulate him for having done it. And I would continue and make the point that what he did was he created electoral history in the Caribbean, because you have never had a situation before where someone who was like Donald Trump, in that he was never had a history in politics, comes into politics 8 months later. So he takes up the leadership of a political party. Previous to that, he had no political experience. 8 months, he takes up a political party. 8 months later, he wins an election and beats a person like Dr. Mitchell, who is easily one of the most credible adversaries that any political candidate could want to face off after. Dr. Mitchell has had more political success than anyone else in this Caribbean. There was good reason to believe that Dickinson Mitchell could not have beaten him. But I am prepared to admit no, or I'm prepared to say no, that, this is clearly, he won. I mean, it's obvious that he won, and I think it is an opportunity for us to look at and reassess political events as they go over time. And I made the point also, you look at Donald Trump, and in many ways, his victory was very similar to Donald Trump's, where going in, there was not an expectation that Donald Trump would have won. Donald Trump won the election. All the pollsters in the United Kingdom, United States of America, were confounded by the fact that Donald Trump could actually won the election. He won it. So, history is about things happening that has never happened before. The individual is somebody that I like. I find he is, he seems to be a nice person, and I think that he has a lot to offer in terms of his politics, and certainly a lot to offer in terms of the NDC. He will have some challenges. The other point I wanted to make too is that while I acknowledge that he did win, he did well, I congratulate him. The other reality is, if you look at the minute data in terms of the election campaign, there's some things that stand out. One of them is that the party support, the voter turnout was lower than in the previous election. So there was a decline in terms of voter support. And that was, to me, a significant observation, while less Grenadians participated. The second point is that essentially Dickon Mitchell won that election in three seats with less than 300 votes. The margins in 3 of those seats that were converted with less than 300 votes in Carriacou and Petite Martin, the margin was 7. So there is not a groundswell of support for him at this stage. There was enough for him to win. My sense is that going forward, the future is going to be interesting. One or two things can happen. Either he can consolidate the support. You know, he can use the opportunity that he got a foot in the door to essentially consolidate his support, remake it. Or alternatively, he can become frustrated. And I really do hope that he does the former and that he does well and, you know, he is able to essentially make a brand for himself. So that's where I am. I don't believe that my science is coming up short in any way. And I'm happy that in terms of the development of regional politics, we now have another model that we can speak to. So that's it. That's me. I'm not hearing.
You mute, Junior. Still not hearing you. Maybe you need to go ahead and come back. Peter, Peter, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
All right. My name is Dwight Thompson. I'm a journalist. I live in the diaspora. So while Junior is sorting that out, I remember I listened to you on one of the other platform shows that we have in Grenada. I think it's a Bug Report, and you sounded very much confident that a victory would be for the new National Party over the National Democratic Congress. And I mean, in the last few weeks or so, Dickon Mitchell was able to revolutionize, in want of better words, some of the NNP base and transform them into the NDC. In terms of your history as a pollster in the Caribbean, have you ever seen that happen in any political district?
Well, I tell you this, and let me correct you. I am not convinced that what Dickon Mitchell achieved was voter conversion. I think what he achieved was voter suppression, which is a very different process. If you look at the numbers in the various constituencies, for example, look at St. David's, there was a drastic decrease in terms of support for Peter David. In many Caribbean countries, what happens is that when you have these kinds of revolutionary situations occurring, it's often because you don't necessarily convince people to vote against, you convince people to remain at home, which is good enough. So I think that the NDC base was energized, it was clearly energized, and it came out and it supported with enthusiasm. As far as the NNP base is concerned, I think that a lot of them were energized and a lot of them stayed at home. Now the question is, how did Dickon Mitchell make that happen? My sense is that Dickon Mitchell's intelligence in terms of understanding the messages he had to carry were important. And I also think that he was able to play on the fact that he was young, he was intelligent, he was essentially everything that Dr. Mitchell was not the intelligent part, but in terms of the youth. And I feel that people bought into that in a significant measure. Have we seen that in any other Caribbean country? No. Generally speaking, in the Caribbean, I always tell my clients that one of the most vulnerable aspects of a politician is usually lack of experience, because people generally do not want to elect people who have no political experience, who are not known to them. You change a candidate in a constituency, far less change a leader. Within 8 weeks of an election campaign, that's something that would normally not work out. So the question as to whether it's happened before in the Caribbean, I've never seen a situation where it has happened. In St. Lucia, the St. Lucia Labour Party parachuted Dr. Anthony into their leadership in the 1990s. And he had success that was similar to Dickon Mitchell's in terms of his first term, because he wasn't in Parliament and he ran. The thing is that Dr. Anthony had already been a politician. He had already been a minister of education, I believe. He had served in the Senate. He was the youngest person who had ever served in the Senate. He had a political history.
Yeah.
He comes from CARICOM, he parachutes in, and he wins the election. That would have been the closest comparator. And the reason that I distinguished that from Dickon Mitchell in terms of my analysis was simply because Dr. Anthony had a political history. Dickon Mitchell did not. So, you know, I'm watching the chat and I'm always amused at the fact that everyone says, say you're wrong, say you're wrong. Are we here to try to understand what happened?
Yeah,
And I think that it's important in understanding what happened to acknowledge the extent to which Dickon Mitchell has essentially transformed politics in the Caribbean. And
Well,
there's really no comparator. Yeah.
let me just come in. I think traditionally on and elections campaign and elections climate within Grenada, and I think one of the things I've noticed is that in Grenada traditionally we vote along the party lines more than we actually vote for a candidate. So it's very much. It's not unusual to see a candidate change in a particular constituency and win that constituency based on the party that he or she allies themselves to. We see that in 2018 with Kate Skeeter Lewis, who is now Pear. We see it in CARICOM Petit Martinique with Kendra Madrin Stewart. We saw that with, you know, I mean, the examples could go on and on and on. But what I was essentially trying to get out of you is that impression, that belief that Dickon Mitchell did not come into politics and adopt business as usual. What he did, he came into politics and he came in with his own style and used his own style. I mean, when many people thought, well, that's a reckless move to make, knowing that you have no political history. But what that did for him is that eliminated the conversation about experience. Because if in the absence of experience, what you do is that you go to the people who either have the experience or the people who are knowledgeable about, you know, the job, and let them provide with a platform to build on or a foundation to build on. And I think that is what would have happened in Dickon Mitchell's case. He did not come in and just use the big stage and talk down or talk to or talk from. He implemented this town hall style approach, which is excellent because guess what? You get to understand the pulse of the people. You get to understand what's happening on the ground. You get to understand what the concerns are. And if you look in previous elections, 2013, 2018, you would realize that Grenadians voted essentially to get back, one, the Imani program, two, the Bushin programs, and much of the social network, social benefit programs that the NNP is so famous for. Some of those were removed or either suffered under the 2008 to 2013 government. You know, which is what the NNP would have used to campaign on. Imani program will be shut down again, etc. Not understanding that people would have shifted, people's mindset would have shifted, people's view of politics would have shifted, because guess what? The pandemic would have provided the NDC with that platform that they need and the approach that they took for people to realize that, listen, it is more than just a handout. It is more than just giving me a $20 or $100 or $200 at the end of the month. Because guess what? The prices in the supermarket has skyrocketed. The prices at the polls has skyrocketed. And so when I was able to survive on $200, I now need $4, I need $5. Right?
Yeah.
As the political...
You guys hear me now?
Yes, we're hearing you, Junior.
Okay, all right. Okay, for finish your talk, we have Kem, but Kem is going to be on the phone lines. Kem, you're on the phone line. We will take Kem from the phone line because you're having problem connecting. So finish your thought and we're going to bring in Kem. Go ahead,
So essentially what I'm saying is that I believe in this particular election cycle, the New National Party was ill-prepared. They called a flash election hoping to get the NDC ill-prepared, and it worked out bad in their favor. Two, they did not take time out to understand the constituents for which they are responsible for. They didn't take time out to understand that the needs of these constituents has changed and changed drastically. Three, they did not understand that people who were yesterday 14 or 20 or 10 are now adults and are ready to vote. They didn't do anything to appeal to them. As a matter of fact, the entire campaign, when NDC was peddling or pushing policies this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. The NNP, on the other hand, was on the platform saying, calling Mr. Susu, Tobias, come home. They dunce. I mean, those kind of languages. They're not prepared, and so on and so forth. Those are the rhetorics that we have seen 2003, 2008, 2013, 2018. We're used to it. What we need now is solid policy. Because guess what? And the NDC was able to do that. They won the battle. Junior, I'm wrapping up. They won the battle in terms of paraphilias, posters, t-shirts, etc. They won the battle in terms of social media. They had a strong NDC while NNP was catching up. And so I do believe that this election that the National Democratic Congress won is because they were prepared and they put the work in to ensure that they won.
All right, let's just make sure that Kim could hear us and we could get Kim views on this as well. Kim, could you hear us?
Yes, I'm hearing you all loud and clear.
Okay, Kim, so we're going to take your analysis from the phone line. Guys, we had connection problems with Kim on the video, so we bring him in on the phone. Kim, what's your take on the polls? What's your take on what transpired on the 13th? We haven't gotten your take on that as yet.
Right, well, firstly, let me just say, you will hear a little noise in the background, because I'm headed up to Carriacou to express thanks and appreciation to the people who have been supporting the program or the project. I think that's a more appropriate way to put it. The project that I started with a team 8 years ago. Many people may believe that it's a 8 months, victory, but it's victory far more than 8 months. When we started the Youth for Change movement, we understood very clearly that the Grenadian people want something uniquely different. We also went on the ground and gathered the intelligence, gathered the kind of information, the raw data, so as to guide us in that process. We were going around the country, speaking to people, having meetings, talking about the issues, and all they were saying is that they need freshness. They need a new team of people to come forward. So we work assiduously to get to that point where that new team came forward. So while Dr. Mitchell was talking about experience, we were not bothered about that. Our focus was more about the issues because the Grenadian people were somewhat fed up with this one-manism. You see, Dr. Mitchell eventually became a liability to the NNP, another asset, right? He has been there for so long. And once we polished the message, the Grenadian people understood it clearly and they came forward. It was not a situation of attacking Keith Mitchell. We changed that strategy and we stuck to issues. In other words, what we did was to make Keith Mitchell irrelevant because the people were about bread and butter, better health care, better roads, better education system, addressing the high cost of living, the issue of pension and gratuity, the issue of minimum wage, the legalization of cannabis, and we can go on and on. Grenadians were more in tune with the real issues. Not only that, we have to understand that you have a population that's purely youthful. So having candidates who are actually youthful and able to relate and connect with the young people. The result was not. Look, it's historic, but from my end, I knew. I want to be real with you. I knew when I saw the overwhelming turnout on election morning that change was coming.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I wanna speak on. I know a lot of people talking about historic and this being such a widely big turnout election. But Peter, based on your analysis and when you look at the numbers from this election, was it really that much of a bigger, massive turnout than the election of the past?
But quite the opposite. There was a reduction in party support. So I actually like his analysis of the situation, because and I wanted to comment on a lot of the stuff that the journalist just said. And I don't disagree that the issues are important, but I do feel that the last gentleman who I believe is a candidate Am I correct?
Sorry?
Was he a candidate?
No, he was not a candidate.
He's not a candidate. Okay. No, I like his analysis of the situation because he said the one thing I think that was important, that Dr. Mitchell became an issue. Dr. Mitchell's being an issue created a space for all of what you're hearing happen in terms of the treatment of issues. I don't disagree that the NNP campaign was not good. I agree that the NNP campaign didn't catch the issues. The NNP campaign was like all previous NNP campaigns because they dealt with politics in the way that they always have. And you know what? It worked for them well over the years. They had the presumption that it will work for them well on this occasion, but on this occasion, the narrative was changed because all of the issues that were issues in the previous election campaigns, that are issues all over the Caribbean, the opportunity was created for those issues to be discussed because people grew tired of Dr. Mitchell. And I'm saying that we can't analyze this election without looking at the role of Dr. Mitchell, right? We have to look at the role of Dr. Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell was beaten by Tillman Thomas in 2008, okay? To this day, I am not convinced that Tillman Thomas was more popular than Dr. Mitchell, but he beat Dr. Mitchell. I think at that point in time, Grenadians were tired of him. And the reality is that when the election after 2018, the election after 2013, when they were able to get back into office and win all the seats, essentially, it wasn't that people had felt, okay, well, we're now re-energized in terms of our interest in Dr. Mitchell. It was a situation where they were saying the alternative was worse. And that's why I think that what the NDC did was brilliant. You bring somebody new, you completely change the narrative, and essentially it worked because you then take someone who is not part of this whole conversation, you acknowledge the fact that Dr. Mitchell is tired and that the people want to have a new alternative. So you give them the alternative. And the alternative is somebody who is not getting into the bubble of the past. The person is essentially dealing with fundamental issues that are on the table. We're doing COVID is bread and butter. And people are saying, okay, well, I will listen. So the only issue I would have in terms of the analysis of the issues and so on is that I do feel that the opportunity would have been there in the past to discuss issues. The problem is that there was no space. Dr. Mitchell created the space for those issues to be discussed. And I think that, Prime Minister Mitchell essentially exploited it by speaking, and certainly when he is taunting and so on, Prime Minister Mitchell is speaking to, the plans that they're going to have to deal with this, the plans will have to deal with that. And it was an excellent strategy. And, as I said, good on him. But I think we cannot discuss this without acknowledging the fact that the problem was an NDC motivation, an NP motivation in relation to the fact that people grew tired of Dr. Mitchell. And my feeling is that they grew tired of Dr. Mitchell a long time ago. So, this is it. This is the situation. The other point I want to make about voter turnout is that, in many instances, it's a demotivation on the part of an NP supporters, that I'm saying, would have been largely responsible for that, because a lot of them did not come out to vote because there's about 4,000 people. Like, this may be the rough calculation in terms of a change in NNP support. And I'm convinced a lot of those people were NNP supporters that just had no motivation to come out to vote for him because of the fact that it appeared for the first time that this was an alternative that was on the table.
Yeah. Peter, someone just posted in the chat, so I'll pose the question to you. Someone was saying, but what you're saying now is absolutely the opposite of what you were saying before.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Look, when I was speaking before, I'm speaking to an evolving political scenario, and people have to stop this silly, taunting and going on. We are not analyzing the situation. In politics, we are trained to look at the data, look at the evidence, and try to understand the scenario as it evolves. Okay? And that's exactly what I did at that time. At that time, to the best of my knowledge, the scenario is there. I presented the scenario to you and I said what I said, right? I did not think the people of Grenada were ready for someone who had not been in politics for more than 8 months. I didn't think so. At the same time, however, I can acknowledge now, with the benefit of the evidence that we've just seen in the election, that it worked. So do we want to spend time talking about the fact that I should just come on the program and say I'm wrong? Or alternatively, do we understand the broader political implications of all of this? And that's where I am now. And I'm saying that if it is that we just want me to come here and say, oh, I got egg all over my face and whatnot, I mean, we're wasting time. Could nobody benefit from that? If you want to have an intelligent conversation about how we move Caribbean politics forward, I'm with you. And certainly that's something that I want to do.
Yeah, Dwight, and then we're going to go back to Kim. Dwight, go ahead. Not Dwight, you muted. Dwight, you muted. Dwight, you muted. All right. While we sort Dwight out, Kim, you wanted to come in here?
Yeah, well, for me, Junior, I thought that the NNP camp was somewhat overconfident and complacency stepped in, right? Because everywhere you go, 15 nil, 15, everywhere you go, you hear them talk about 15. And just the number 15 made people angry, yeah? Because people just didn't want to see another government in Grenada with all 15 seats, without the opposition to really keep things where it's supposed to be, checks and balances and so on. So the complacency stepped in. Many of the NNP supporters, they really didn't go out, and also agree with Peter. They really didn't go. They were not bothered. They thought they won. They thought they win already. And look, why bother? But you see, we were hungry for victory. We were eager for victory. We were working day and night to ensure that victory comes. And not only that, remember, what we did was to focus on the issues. And once you stick to the issues and you show people how they will benefit. Because in Grenada and in Carriacou, for example, you have a governor in Carriacou who gets all the work. He benefits his family, everybody. And then you have a governor general in Grenada, right? So they were eating a good food. One clique of people within the NNP administration was eating a good food and living good and happy. Grenadians started seeing that because we were educating them, empowering them, letting them know what was taking place. And from that, things started to turn, you know, where we wanted it. I think Grenadians are happy. There's a level of lightness in the country.
But can I ask a quick question though? Why were you not able to do that in 2018? And why were you not able to do that in 2013? And why were you not able to do that in the other two elections in which the NDC was? What's the critical difference? Tell me.
Peter, are you here? Hello?
I'm hearing you.
Yes, no, I am saying what we did was to put together a new team. There was no longer a Nazim book. There was no longer the old guards to attack and go after. Here you have a new team with a visionary leader, with plans and programs. It was just uniquely different. So the Grenadian people were clamoring for that. If you don't know, let me tell you, Peter, a poll done through my intervention, asking Grenadians, what do you really want? What do you want to see in the NDC? And everybody was saying, well, we wanted to change up. We want a new leader. We want a new team. We want new people to come forward. And the reform took place from then. So I am actually saying, we couldn't do it in 2013 because we had a team of people there. 2018, a team of people there that the Grenadian people really rejected. Right? And we got to be real. They love Uncle Sealy, he's nice and so on, but when it comes to 2018, it's a different ball game.
But and I'm suggesting to you that you are correct. You're absolutely correct, and I think that has to be the foundation of our analysis of this situation.
Hold on a second. All right. So let me have Kim. Let me have because Kim has a lot of noise in his background. We can't really hear it too clearly, but we're still hearing you, Kim. So I want go ahead and respond, Peter, and then we're going to go to Dwight.
No, and I am agreeing with him because the reason I asked that question was because I am anxious for an acknowledgement that there was something fundamentally different. And the difference is that you had a tired former Prime Minister, Dr. Mitchell, and you had an enthusiastic and energetic new incoming Prime Minister Michael Mitchell. Now, I am suggesting to you that all of what he said about the NDC's team being old and tired and doing the same thing, I've said it all along. I've said it repeatedly. The NDC needed to change their guard. They needed to change the conversation with the Nazim Burks. And I even went on to talk about it, and I said in the clip that you heard it. These are characters that are rooted in the revolution of the 1970s. And I think the Grenadians are tired hearing about that. So you basically, the magic was that you have created a new conversation by having a sparkling new prime minister. He was 5 years old and had the revolution. He knew nothing about it. And you're now having a conversation along a different path about contemporary issues with a new person, and it gives you essentially an opportunity to exploit a weakness of the NNP, which is that the NNP is fossilized now. So I think it's brilliant, and I congratulate you for doing it. But all I want is an acknowledgement on your part that this is something that took the NNP a really long time to discover. And I mean, I have said it on programs like this all along. So this is this feeling that you're being disingenuous towards the NDC, that the NDC needed to do that back. There was a conversation that we had back just before 2013 when the government collapsed, and they were saying exactly the same thing. Tim Thomas was clearly not the answer. And I think that they needed to have looked for leadership. At the time, I was comfortable with the Peter David option because I felt that he was the most popular person in there. But to me, they did one better. Unfortunately, it took them another 10 years to do it. But I mean, it has happened. And I think that, you know, there's great promise for the future in terms of what they have achieved now.
Yeah, all right. So Dwight, I know Dwight eager to come in here with his comments. Dwight, go right ahead.
Yes, you're hearing me, right?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Okay, so I think one of the things established going forward is that much of what Peter Wickham is saying now sounds what he was saying before, granted. But I think we need to move the conversation forward. Because if we continue to dilly-dabby around what was said before, what is saying now, it doesn't change anything, to be honest. When you look at the NDC, and you look at the style of politics that the NNP has chose to do, that style of attacking and creating a level of insecurity or a level of disbelief or, you know, a level of mistrust in candidates put forward by the NDC over the years. And the NDC as an organization trying, treading along the lines of good governance and accountability and you know, that image, protecting of one image, etc., and not addressing the accusations that the table against them from the NNP has caused the party to suffer in the 2013 and the 2018 elections, respectfully, as well as Grenadians. And as I said before, and I repeated, Grenadians trust the NNP because NNP has delivered on the social safety nets, the social programs that they need, right? And that's a culture stemming way back into the Gary time. It's a style of politics that was adopted by Dr. Mitchell from the Gary, from the Gary, the days of Gary. The thing about it is, I fundamentally believe that the New National Party did not have enough time to unearth whatever dirt, and I think during the tenure of the NDC government, you would see and hear from them all kinds of things coming forward, because that is just their style. That is what they do. The Prime Minister got on a political stage in Happy Hill and attacked Decon Mitchell as being Susu. His pundits attacked him based on his representation of the SGU workers and so on and so forth, and not understanding that those things will backfire on them, because guess what? They didn't put policy in place to protect Grenadian workers when they instrumented a policy for vaccination, right? And not only that, the NNP rather have won successive 15-0, 2013, 2018. I believe that they got complacent, as Peter said. Complacent to the point that during the last administration, last time in government, media houses were being sued. There were conflicts on the ground in terms of victimization. People were sent home, and all of that nonsense happened. And guess what? In addition to that, you had, teachers' salary being docked around Christmas. You had teachers protesting for salary, for pension. You had the situation at TAMCC. All of those situations were not addressed, even in the height of a political campaign. You had the situation at TAMCC again when the minister, the substantive minister of education, got on a platform in Snell Corner and said that, look, students were called out to protest for good grades. Now, if you look across the world, that's something that always happens. Whenever it is that you have a situation in universities, it always the students who comes out and present the issue. But here it is, our Minister of Education, I like to call Auntie Emma, came out and blasted the institution, right? Then you had the pension issue. The pension verdict came out in March. We in July. We are about to enter July, rather. We were in June. They were still the government. They did nothing, right? And they believed, hey, we didn't do nothing, but they will still vote for us because we've been doing nothing and they still vote for us. But not understanding that the landscape beneath them totally changed. It totally changed. And when you look, final point, when you look at the constituencies, and I say this with no pun intended, no disrespect intended whatsoever, when you look at the constituencies that the NNP will have won in this recent election, are the constituencies where major handouts are happening. St. Mark's, St. Andrews, Southeast. Well, Kate has...
Well, the last St. Andrews Southeast.
Yeah, say Emmeline Pierce constituency.
Right, yeah.
Right. Kate put in some work. She did. Right? And we admit that. Right? The tongue of St. George. Dr. Mitchell's constituencies that traditionally have had massive handouts happening in these constituencies. Massive handouts. And so you create that loyalist base. They have used the Imani program. Let's be truthful. They have used the Imani program as a loyalist club to win elections. And this cycle itself over and over and over. So it is not that, and as Peter said, people been fed up with Dr. Mitchell, been fed up with his policies, been fed up with his dictator style of leadership. But when you look at it, and you look at the National Democratic, what was the option? In St. George's Northwest, where Jonathan Lackett run. In St. Mark's, just closing off with this point, in St. Mark's, where Queen's Britain run. If you look at these two constituencies, people in those constituencies have said that they are fed up with the present political, the MP.
Right.
But no other party has ever presented to them a suitable option. So they vote back in the same over and over.
But the question is,
election.
The question is, Peter, did Dr. Keith Mitchell have access to this data that is telling him, that had the writing on the wall that's saying that this is imminent? Because I mean, his articulation all the way through was a sense of high level of confidence. Right. And this is not scientific. I mean, I went to some of the polling stations, some of the walk around and talk to some of the candidates, and they were saying, well, these are the numbers and that's what we're going to win by. And after the fact, those numbers were the numbers that stand through all the for the whole election period. So how could Dr. Keith Mitchell, being such a stalwart in politics, not pick up on these small intelligence?
Well, I mean, you're saying that, right? But you're forgetting one important factor. Dr. Mitchell was Prime Minister in Grenada since 1995 or 94, right? Was it 94 or 95? Right?
95.
95. He was Prime Minister since 1995, and he won 3 elections with all the seats, at different points in time. He won several of the elections fairly easily. When a person wins and wins so easily, they get to a point where they believe that they have invented this project, right? And you're saying about, would he not have known? I don't know whether he knew or not, because as I told you, that my polls are private, the property of a client, and I don't know whether that client would have showed us. Could it be? But what I can tell you, well, hold on a second. But what I can tell you, right, is that he would not have known in terms of the way that the campaign was going or whatnot, because there was no monitoring going on. But what I can tell you is that the fact of the matter is, Prime Minister Mitchell had good reason to believe that he would have won again, simply because he had won it on so many previous occasions. And I think that the one critical point that I am prepared to acknowledge is that the fact that the May poll, the poll that was done in May of this year, showed that the NNP was strengthening. If Dr. Mitchell had access to that information, that's probably the reason why he called the election immediately, because he perhaps realized that for the first time, he had an adversary that was essentially standing up and was strengthening and was consolidating. And his thing is, well, it's part of that he pressed the button now before he finds himself in a situation where he moves from 15 Love to 15 Love in the other direction. And I would say, obviously, he read those tea leaves, but there is evidence when you are able to win 3 elections and win all the seats. When you're able to be prime minister with one single little four-year hiatus, there comes a point where you believe that, clearly you're invincible. And if it worked all the other times, why it's not going to work this time? The important point that I think that we're able to discover today, that one of the reasons why it did not work on this occasion is because you had a new prime minister, you had a young person. You talked about Donald Trump earlier. Donald Trump talked about cleaning the swamp. This is a conversation that Prime Minister Mitchell could easily have had in Grenada about cleaning the swamp, because he was not part of it. He was not part of that conversation. And the only way you can advance an argument like that is if you are not part of the conversation. And this is something that I do not believe that Dr. Mitchell would have been able to anticipate, because, as I said, it's never something that has happened before. He's dealt with the NDC that brought back same characters, same persons, that had the same politics, and it continued to fail, and he felt that it would fail on this occasion. But guess what?
I want to jump to Kim, but I want to say this. I remember Dr. Keith Mitchell speaking on the podium on numerous times, and he said that we just received some polling data, right? He didn't make it public what the polling data was, but he was always saying that the polling data show that we are winning and we're winning strongly. I'm not quoting his exact words here, but along those lines of things. Could it be possible that Dr. Mitchell was fed incorrect information?
It's possible, but it wasn't done by me. I don't know who polls for Dr. Mitchell. So I'm saying it's entirely possible that he was fed information, or alternatively, it is entirely possible that he did not properly interpret the information that he was seeing. I don't know which it was, because I don't know what he was referring to. But I heard other people saying that there was reference made to polls. The election night, I heard the general secretary of the party saying that they had statistical evidence on the ground that was collected during the course of the election campaign that showed them that they were winning and doing very well. Right? I am not familiar with that information, so I don't know where it would have come from. So, but I don't think that this is not logical assumption that when you hear people talking about polls in the Caribbean, it can only have come from me. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
All right, Kim, you still there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here, Junior.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim. I know a lot was said during that time.
Well, I firmly believe that the NNP ran a 2018 campaign in 2022, where they were actually attacking Deacon Mitchell. He's a new person, attacking, and just the campaign itself, it came across as though it's outdated, they're out of touch, that's the NNP. And as a result, people distance themselves from the campaign.
Yep.
They just, and the mistake they made, they underestimated the will of the people, the desire of the people. The people want change, and they were willing to do everything to get that change that they really desire.
Yeah. And again, Thompson, we're going to come to you, but we conducted polls on this platform here. I mean, it's not scientific in no stretch of the imagination, I'm sure, like Dr. Pierre and, of course, Peter Wickham's poll. But our poll was saying, the writing on the wall from our poll, our online poll, was that NNP would lose this election. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't only right this time. The last election, it told us that NNP would have won the election. So it's not the same all the time, but when we went through the data and we look at the areas of where people are watching from, St. George's, and the opinion poll showed that it was right. It was accurate. There was another network that did a poll as well, and it was accurate as well. So where did Dr. Mitchell get his information from?
Well, if you ask me, Junior, I will tell you that, you see, canvassing, that's a very important component of the process. If you want to win, you must have people who are trained properly to do proper canvassing. You can recall me saying over and over, that is where you're going to have a smooth operation on the day. So the NDC was training their people to go there, proper canvassing to get accurate information. But the NNP had folks going out there and feeding them with false information. So ultimately on the day, they were misguided. There were people going in the polling station. And when they see me, they say, Kim Jones, I get a ride with an NNP vehicle to drop me, and they believe that they were going to vote for NNP, but they were actually going to vote for their pension and their gratuity and the future of their children and children. They were going to vote for NDC. So they were ill-advised. The information that was provided to them was false. And Dr. Mitchell, who is a statistician, should have known better that the folks who were going out there in the field that I met on umpteen occasions, I knew that they were getting false information. I could recall going in Concord, for example. That's a stronghold of the NNP. When I went to Concord, Black Bay, Power Park, I was only going there to identify our support, the NDC supporters, because we knew we could have made it up in the other areas in Guelph and up that side, only to get our people out to say to them, get out there early, vote. We may not be able to win the polling station, but we will be able to make up the amount once everybody go out. So we were actually out there getting accurate information, and we were guided by that. But I am saying this is a victory for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. We had Keith Mitchell and his party there for very long. This is a very historic win. To come from zero, in fact, to come from 30, right? In other words, NNP won 15 back to back. So you're actually coming from zero and the NNP being at 30. So this is a historic win in this country where the people went out, and do not underestimate the contribution the diaspora played in effecting change in this country. Because when I called on the people in the diaspora and I told them, I said, look, you send barrels, you send foodstuff, clothes, and remittances back home. You have a level of influence and control of the people who you send stuff to. Pick up the phone, walk the phone, call them and persuade them, because you have experienced prosperity, you have experienced good health care, you have experienced life insurance, health insurance, a decent job, pension, and gratuity. You know what it feels like, you know what it tastes like. So as a result, you must explain to our people that poverty is not normal. Poverty is not a normal thing. We want prosperity for our people. We want betterment for our people. And that, I think, was a tipping point in the election. That is why many folks in the diaspora came back home to vote. They came back, some got free tickets from the NNP, and they came to vote for NDC, amazingly.
Indeed.
Yeah, Dwight, you say?
Yeah, let me come in. I think that the NNP got so complacent that they did not pay attention to the signs. Now, one of the things that is notable is that what we see, the victory that we're seeing now, didn't just start 8 months ago. Let me get that clear. Joel Greenidge, Kim Jones, Ashida Charles, Ron Redhead, Tevin Andrews, and a bunch of other radical young people in Grenada began that change process. They took to the street side. They had no money. Some of them had no influence. But what they had is experience of victimization. What they had was experience of traveling in other countries. What they had was knowledge that what NNP was doing wasn't right. That is when the change process started. Because guess what? They were producing substance. They were having the conversation that mattered. They got into the community. Now, in October, let's say November, in November last year, when Dickon Mitchell was made political leader of the NDC, it seemed to me, and I know it seemed to a lot of Grenadians, that our parliamentary representative woke up. It's as though they were sleeping. They woke up and realized, oh, well, we had trouble in the camp. And then when the NDC revealed their first slate of candidates, at that exact moment is when the campaign started. And within 6 weeks of that, not even 6 weeks, probably less, the Prime Minister jumped on a stage, and I understand, allegedly, let me use that word here, allegedly pulled the election date out of his pocket against the advice of some of his very advisors that were around him. And he did that in an effort to weaken the NDC's chance of winning. But the writing was already on the wall. The story was already written. All that needed to be was just published. All that needed to be was published. And as I said, and I will say it again, if it wasn't for the handouts, if it wasn't, and I say it's no apology, I love my people in Grenada, those who own me, I love y'all bad. But if it wasn't for the handouts, for the poor and the vulnerable, in a lot of these constituencies, the NNP, won, this could have well been a 15-0 defeat NDC to NNP for the first time in history. It could have well been, and that is the reason why in the post-election period, I said on my Facebook, and I'll say it again, I would advise the NDC to pump resources into those constituencies so that these people know that they are loved, and not just in those constituencies, but right through the length and breadth of Grenada, because we have created, the NNP has created a system in Grenada where people rely on handouts more than they rely on actually getting up and work. And that's one of the things that the NDC campaigned on, using our community centers to enhance and to develop the people of Grenada. And it needs to start now. It needs to start. Dickon Mitchell changed the narrative of the conversation, but it was too late for the NNP and Junior, and I'm getting very passionate. My wife will put me outside soon. And the NNP could not touch realistically a lot of the substance, the information that Dickon put out. Dickon was very strategic. They could not come on pension because guess what? They ignored the court ruling since March. They could not come on and talk about victimization because they've been victimized, and a lot of people come out and talk about it. They could not talk about people being able to speak and speak freely because they sued GBN twice. They could not come out and talk about so many other issues because guess what? In the last term of the administration, they did the opposite of, and people didn't forget, we had a minister's husband suing left, right, and center. And when the
and let's say allegedly here, Samson.
Allegedly.
Because
we do have the information, Junior. So that's not. I mean, we say allegedly, but we have the information. We have the information that GBN, the letter that was sent to GBN, came from the law firm that the former legal minister's husband is head of.
Right. That's a fact. That's a fact.
And that's a fact. So,
yes.
So there's no allegedly. The point I'm making is they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
As a result, Dickon Mitchell was able to use that and advance his agenda, right? And create a people first sort of approach. Dickon Mitchell did not change much of what NDC, the conversation, that NDC had. All he did was put a fresh young face to it.
Right.
That's all he did. But I think one of the things that as well caught the NNP rather off guard is the caliber of candidates that came forward. David Andrew, Jonathan Lacrette, Tessa Sincere, Philip Telesford, the caliber, the standard of these people, they were unmatched.
Right.
Dr. Mitchell, one last point. Dr. Mitchell went through his entire campaign and did not mention one single negative word about Jonathan Lacrette. Go back in 2018, go back in 2013, Ali Dowden get it left, right, and center. Right.
The fact about it is, and Peter, you could come in here. I believe that the NNP campaign with the stalwarts and the seasoned campaigners in terms of election, I think one of the fundamental things that they didn't see or they didn't do or didn't quite understand is that election is a mathematical equation. And it works in your favor if you are adding or multiplying, not subtracting and dividing. I think that in a lot of instances we saw where the NNP was either purposely or I don't know where, I don't know why, but they were shrinking their base. Because I don't understand for the life of me, Peter, help me understand this. Why they would have a ad, right? And that ad came out early in the game, where they're talking about passport. The ad came out where they're speaking about passport and Deacon and passport. And I said to myself when I saw that ad, I said, that ad is going to come around and slap them in the face, because whenever you talk about passport, what comes up is that Al Jazeera report. So I don't understand why they would want to have a conversation about selling passport when that is a blatant comeback in the face for the NNP and the leading administration. Don't talk about passport selling, no way at all. And that was the initial part of the conversation. So Peter, in essence, I'm saying, I think it was bad advice all the way wrong in terms of the whole campaign in terms of the knowing and analyzing and understanding they're losing in certain constituency and somehow projecting, and didn't put up the candidates. They failed to put up the candidates in front of medias, independent medias, who would have gained them some traction. Even candidates that didn't even know nothing about, like Mr. Nimrod Olivier. Nimrod Olivier, a good friend of mine, but he was not present on a lot of the mediums. Who gave them to do that? Why didn't they have him out in every platform speaking? So all the way around, I'm saying, Mr. Peter Wickham, I think that it was just bad advice all over. You could chime in here.
I mean, this is a fascinating discussion, huh? And I want to make a couple of points. The first one is that there are a couple of very successful political parties, indeed outstanding political parties, in terms of winning and the ability to win an election and the ability to ensure that they cannot be discounted whenever an election is called. The People's National Movement in Trinidad and Tobago is one of them. St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party is one of them. The Barbados Labour Party is one of them. You know what? The NNP is one of them. In terms of success in Grenada politics, the NNP is in a class by itself. In terms of success in Caribbean politics, the NNP is in a class by itself. There is no other leader in the Caribbean that has won all the seats 3 times. Prime Minister Motley has done it twice. Dr. Mitchell holds the record. There are other people who have done it. Okay. Now, I am saying that when we approach an analysis of a Grenada election, and I'm not disagreeing with anything that y'all are saying, because in terms of y'all's analysis and reading of the situation, it is spot on. But I am saying, let us understand that when a political organization has been so successful, it is not unusual that that political organization believes that it has written the book. In 1986, look at the PNM in Trinidad and Tobago, cobbled together party called the NAR, National Alliance for Reconstruction, beat the most outstanding and successful political machine in Trinidad and Tobago called the PNM, right? In Barbados, the Barbados Labour Party was beaten by Prime Minister Stewart, right? Who is generally considered to be a bit of a political disaster, but he beat Owen Arthur. The point I'm making is that I am not disagreeing with you guys that the NDC campaign was superior. I am not disagreeing with you guys that Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister Mitchell, is the answer to all of this that was going on before. And I wish him well. All I'm saying to you is that this idea that you guys are coming with and saying, you know, but it was so easy to understand and the reading and the writing was on the wall and whatnot. The reality of the situation is that the NDC has not been able to do that for 25 years, off and on. The NNP has done it for 25 years, off and on, or on more than off. So they had good reason to believe that if they pulled it off on all of those previous occasions and won elections, they could pull it off on this occasion. But guess what? It didn't work. And I think that what you guys have to be careful of is that you don't be deluded into this belief that it will work that easily going forward. And also that Prime Minister Mitchell does not have some major challenges ahead of him in terms of managing a public service that is staffed largely by people that grew up under the NNP regime. And some of the same challenges that Tillman Thomas encountered, right? I mean, we need to talk about that. Some of the same challenges that Tillman Thomas encountered, Prime Minister Mitchell will encounter. And I am just saying that I get it and I understand it, but to me, there comes a point when, you know, patting yourself on the back and saying we did a good job is important. I think that you need to have a victory lap, but there also comes a point when you have to settle down and understand that if it was that it was so simple and easy to, as you say, read the tea leaves, why is it that the NDC didn't read the tea leaves for all of those years that it was in the political wilderness? The NNP has been beaten, and quite rightly so. I congratulate the NDC for what it has done. But let us not forget that the NNP continues to be one of the most successful political parties in the Caribbean. And the NNP's leader, which is Dr. Mitchell, continues to be easily one of the most successful political leaders in the Caribbean. Do I think he needs to retire? Oh, yes, I do. I think he should have retired a long time ago. But you also have to appreciate it in all of that conversation that the gentleman has been outstanding in terms of his leadership and ability to win. You may argue that the leadership left much to be desired in terms of what it achieved, but in terms of being able to win elections, it has worked on every occasion. The other point I wanted to make about the seats that were actually not won by the NDC. They are coincidentally the seats that have the strongest residual support for the NNP in them. And I mean, you may say it's handouts and whatnot, but the fact of the matter is, one of the ways to ensure you don't lose your seat is you go in with a strong tailwind, which is essentially that you have a strong residual level of support. And that's the fact of the matter. Now, how you maintain that support often is from handouts and whatnot. That is, part of our reality. But I do think that that's significantly the reason why you could have identified the seats where the swing to get those seats out would have been far higher in those instances.
Yeah. Kem, I want to bring you in back here, but I want to ask a question, Kem. You could give your points, but also jump in on this, right? Someone sent this information to me, and I thought I'd get perspectives on this one. People are saying that the fact that former Prime Minister Keith Mitchell would have lost his seat at this point in time without naming a successor might see the similar effect that the GULP had by the GULP was Eric Machugeri. Eric Machugeri was the GULP. Could this possibly mean that the NNP may never recover from something like this?
Absolutely not.
Am you there? Could you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay,
I'm hearing you.
hear me?
I would be glad to answer the question.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Peter. We'll ask him on the phone, but go ahead.
No, I think the best thing for the NDC and NP would be for Dr. Mitchell to essentially put the leadership of the NNP up for grabs, give them 6 months to a year to choose a new leader, have a special conference in the way that Prime Minister Stewart did in Barbados. Have a special conference and elect a new leader and let that person take the leadership of the opposition. I think that would be the best thing. I said that when Dr. Douglas was lost in St. Kitts, that it would have been a good thing. Do I think it will happen? Probably not. So as far as what I suspect will happen is that the NDC and NP has already said it will sit under Dr. Mitchell. So Dr. Mitchell would take the leadership of the New National Party. If the new National Democratic Congress begins to speed wobble and Prime Minister Mitchell begins to speed wobble in any way, Dr. Mitchell will feel re-energized and will feel that he has the capacity to bring down the government in the way that he did after he brought down Prime Minister Thomas. That's the scenario. Personally, I think that he will play a waiting game and he will see whether the speed wobble occurs. And if the speed wobble occurs, then he probably won't go anywhere. If however, in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis under Denzel Douglas was beaten worse the second time than he was the first time. And he still has not left. But the party took him down as leader now, and they have a bright guy called Dr. Drew that's leading the organization. And he shows considerable promise. And we see what happens in the next election. But this idea about the party being the person, I agree with you entirely. And a big part of the reason why there has been no successor name is because if you get to a situation where you are comfortable with the party being an extension of yourself, then why would you name a successor? Personally, I think that if the NP had named a successor, if the NEP had run under, it would have been a different conversation that we are having today. Those 3 constituencies in which 300 votes made a difference between win or loss, the conversation may very well have been different, simply because people will be looking at a different alternative. And a big part of the reason why Prime Minister Mitchell was so successful was that he was able to articulate a narrative to which the NDC and NP had gotten out of the habit of responding to, because generally speaking, it wasn't necessary. It didn't really need to. It was working for them before.
Right. Okay, let's take a quick call. Dwight, I'll come to you in a second. Let's take a quick call. We got a call on line. Caller, where are you calling us from?
Grenada, good afternoon to your panel and to the listening audience.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, I have a question there for Mr. Wickham.
Yes.
That's Mr. Wickham, yeah?
Yes.
I would like to know his thought. If Keith Mitchell had won the election, do he think that the Mitchell would have stepped down, as he said? He would have been last one for the road. Because I just heard he mentioned what he should do now is to appoint a successor, being in a position. And also, what do he think about having a by-election whereby Mitchell could step down and have a by-election and choose someone to be in his position. What's his thought on that?
The first question was whether I thought if he would leave. I frankly don't know. I think that people forget that I heard Dr. Mitchell talking about going in 2008. I heard Dr. Mitchell talking about going in 2013. I remember correctly, and I don't know if people haven't remembered this, but I remember hearing him in a political environment speaking about the fact that he wanted to return the party to office and then he was going to go. That was the conversation I heard. And then he faced another election. He said, I need one more to get things in order. So as to whether or not he would have left if he won the election, I frankly don't know. So do I think he should have gone in that instance? Well, certainly. I mean, I think that he should have. And I see someone talking about, this conversation about me speaking negatively of Dr. Mitchell and so on. It's not a question of negative or positive. I'm a political analyst, okay? The fact that I said that I thought that Denzel Douglas needed to hand leadership over to someone else back in 2010 when the government was clearly collapsing, it doesn't mean that I think that Dr. Douglas was anything other than a brilliant prime minister, as is the case with Dr. Mitchell, as is the case with Owen Arthur, as is the case with Dr. Gonzalez. These are all people that I know, I like, I've worked with, but in the final analysis, an individual has to decide for himself when it is time. So as far as political advice goes, I personally think that when Grenadians were given the opportunity to have a constitutional change to ensure that no person could serve more than 3 terms, I thought Grenadians should have voted for it, but they didn't. And a big part of the reason that Dr. Mitchell probably figured that he could continue is because Grenadians rejected it and they said no. So, there you have it. We have a challenge in the Caribbean where the only leader that has successfully retired after having served 3 terms is PJ Patterson in Jamaica. But you think about it, every other leader that has lost and has been taken down. Errol Barrow, Eric Williams died in office. But the reality of the situation is we don't have a good tradition where that's concerned. And if you look over the African continent, the only person that ever did it was Nelson Mandela. That's one of the reasons why he's my hero today, because he came, he served, and he left. Well, all the remaining African leaders, they essentially get fossilized in the post. Robert Mugabe, people forgot that Robert Mugabe was an outstanding leader.
Yeah.
He stayed. And I don't want anyone to leave this conversation with the opinion that I think that Dr. Mitchell has been anything other than a brilliant prime minister. Right? But the reality of the situation is that I support term limits. I feel that people should leave. Currently, Prime Minister Motley is an outstanding prime minister, and she's someone who's a personal friend, and I support her entirely. But there will come a point that I would say the same thing too. Do what you have to do and then move on. President Obama was a brilliant president. He served 2 terms and then he left. Right. So I don't know whether he would have moved on, but I think that there is strong reason to believe that if you look at the other examples that you see in the Caribbean, that there would be no, they would probably not have been changed. As far as the by-election is concerned, again, that's a decision that he would have to make in terms of whether he wants to stay on. Do I think that he should give the party the opportunity to select someone else for that constituency? Most definitely.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's nothing you can do to force the person's hand. He won what, 60-something or 70-something% of the popular vote.
Yeah. Guys, you're watching Right Along Live a lot. And we trying to kind of put this whole thing into perspective. The recently concluded Grenada election. Of course, we have pollster Peter Wickham, Kem Jones, who is on the line because he's traveling, he's on a boat. So I'll say to Jackson, I don't see where the bias is. I don't know where I'm being biased for not having Kem Jones speak. And I made it perfectly clear that Kem is on a boat and we're having connection issues. I don't see the bias. I mean, okay, all right. Let's jump to the phone. Live, where are you calling us from?
Junior, good night. Good night to Mr. Wickham. Good night to all your listeners, all your viewers.
Yes.
I listened to one of the narratives that Peter keeps putting out there in terms of the numbers that the NNP won by in St. Andrews. Okay, that's all well and good. But is he also willing to contrast that with the 2018 elections and look at the numbers in terms of votes that the NDC was able to accumulate and compared to this election? There you would see clearly there's an increase in the number of votes. So trying to justify or trying to create that scenario that the NNP was going to win the election if they got their number of votes, that to me is ludicrous. Okay? Secondly, and let me say congratulations to all the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, especially the young people. This was a grassroots victory. Junior, I know you remember my voice. Yes. From day one, my support was behind the NDC. We worked and we achieved this victory. I knew Dr. Kit Rowley was going to lose because in this election, they only had a cliche. What is safer hands? You are in power for so many years. You can't put up any substantial achievement and you think you can fool the people by saying safer hands? Come on. Anyone who is accustomed paying attention to Grenada election saw the posture of Dr. Kit Mitchell. He was a losing man from the start. We saw the desperation on the campaign trail. The mere fact that he called the election when he called it also indicated that he tried to stop the momentum of the NDC. But it was too little too late. Grenada is a place where every generation there's a revolution. There's a revolution. And the reason why there's a revolution, because those who in power tend to become disconnected with the population. They tend to believe that they are emperors. And the people are well within their right to put them back in their place.
Yes.
The NDC, I would recognize as a political institution in this Caribbean region, simply because there is not much parties or political entities that have gone through what the NDC went through and be able to re-energize, rebuild, and present a narrative that becomes attractive to the majority of the population. What is also not being mentioned, and I know it doesn't apply in our region, but apart from winning the election, the NDC also won the popular vote. I wonder if Peter Wickham saw that. I am not no pollster, but I'm a student of life. I'm a student of life. So let me give you one more prediction here before I go.
Make that last point because we got to wrap up.
Yes. Let me make a last prediction here. What's going to happen to the NNP? And I said it during the election, they're going to be a civil war. They're going to be a civil war in the NNP. Or if they keep Dr. Kit Mitchell, we are more than happy because we're going to beat them in 2027 also. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you, caller. All right.
You're welcome.
Peter, you can respond, and then we're going to go to Dwight. Dwight has a lot to say. We'll take a few more calls and wrap up.
There was really nothing that I needed to respond to because he completely misunderstood my point about margins. But that, victory lap. Let the victory lap continue.
No problem. No problem. Dwight, you was going to say?
Yeah.
We're only going to be on for another 10 minutes, guys. We're only going to be on for another 10 minutes, and we're going to wrap it up. All right.
I'm about to say this might be my closing comment tonight.
Yeah.
I just was going through Facebook and I saw a video that the NNP would have put out. I didn't get a chance to listen to it. But
yeah, I have it. I'm going to back as well.
Yeah, I was saying to one of my regional journalistic colleagues yesterday, I said the NNP is a bit quiet. And that for me is very concerning. Because if they use their tricks in the campaign, I believe, allegedly, let me use that they will try to use their tricks while the NDC is in governance. And that is to use, because when you have a situation where the entire civil service has grown accustomed to NNP, let's put it that way, in the last 20 odd years, only time we had a change of government is 2008, 2013, and we see what happened there. We clearly saw when MP-elect Lennox Andrew said that the late salary by a day or so in between that period was a direct act to embarrass the government. We saw he said that. And I believe that this is something that the NNP is will probably try. But I want to comment on what's next for them. I do believe that this is a time for Dr. Mitchell to gracefully bow out. You may have lost the election, but you have served. And you have served distinguishedly for how many years you have served. And you are going out still popular. You're still going out as the Dr. Mitchell that we knew from yesteryears. I believe that you have lost your momentum over the years. But you have to understand, and I think That is where they have gone wrong. They have to understand that this is a new NDC, a new rebranded NDC, under the same banner, under the same slogan and name and everything. But this is a rebranded NDC. And this is an NDC. You have a young and vibrant leader backed by a young and vibrant team. And so what passed in 2008 will not pass or will not suffice in 2022. And so if I want to go against Peter Wickham and say this, if they do not perform immediate surgery, and I'm saying this as someone who is NDC, because I do believe having an opposition in the parliament is very critical. If they do not go under immediate surgery to repair the party and to bring the party back together under fresh leadership, and might I add that it cannot be somebody from who they have within right now, because guess what? Dr. Mitchell already said that he can't retire because he see nobody within the construct of his party that can replace. So they need to find somebody outside. In addition to that, you have the winning MPs elect going on social media, going in front of the supporters and making very silly statements. Emma Limpe did it. Kate Lewis did it. I think the only one that so far did, when she didn't win anything, was Pamela Moses. They need to do serious surgeries to repair for the sake of having an opposition in the parliament. Repair the party under new leadership, outside leadership, as NDC would have done. And over the next 4 or so years, begin to rebuild the party. And rebuild the party, not under a thief slogan like they did in the last election, because the Safer Hands slogan came from Barbados, and I want Peter will come to say that. That was Mia Mottley's Safer with Mia, Safer Hands with Mia. That was her slogan. So that tells you about the ill preparedness of the New National Party in the last election. So, Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell has a task. He needs to root out in the public service those that will be a threat to his governance and to his progressive agenda. And the NNP needs to go under serious surgery to repair the party and bring it back together if there is going to be an opposition, or if they're going to form the next government, which either way, they need to do repair and do that urgently. That's what I have to say tonight, Junior.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's just take this last call. We're going to pick up Peter Wickham for closing arguments, and then we wrap up. Caller, your live, where are you calling us from?
Yeah, calling for Grenada. We'll be very fast there.
Yes, go ahead.
Good night. When you look at the track record and history, Dr. Mitchell been running Grenada from 95 to 99. Then from 99 to 2003, he lost 2-8. He came back 2013 and 2018. He gets 15-0 both. Yeah. He been running Grenada from 95 for 23 years. He also been in parliament for 38 years. That's 2008 to 2013. And 1984 to 1990. He been in parliament. So 38 years. You know, 75 years of age or more. What else could you do? After being in the ministerial complex day and night, what more could you do at this age? I think it's about time that the gentleman give up power and having an opposition and having power without an opposition. Psychologically, this will make you think that you're the boss. Do you all know that? So I think we need new blood into the policy. Dr. Mitchell has served his time, and now is the time for him to go home on retirement. Last thing I would want to comment on the results. Maybe Mr. Peter Wickham can comment on that. NDC had gotten 31,430 votes. NNP had gotten 28,959 votes. So, in terms of percentage, NDC have got 51%, and NNP got 47%. But there was 86,658 persons registered, and only 60,630 voted. I would like to know why 20,000 people didn't go for the rest to vote. I would like to get a comment from Mr. Wickham on that. what do you think was the major reason for that?
All right. Thank you, caller. Appreciate you. All right. Thank you so much. All right. We're going to close on that. So we can, if you just want to respond. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, if Dwight is ever interested in getting out of journalism and getting into political consulting, I think he should give me a call, because he seems to have a handle on the situation. If I didn't know better, I would think that he was looking out for the best interest of the NNP in terms of the comment that he just made. I agree with him in terms of his analysis of the NNP, the NDC campaign and the effectiveness of it, and I also agree with him in terms of what the NNP needs to do if it is going to rebuild. But I tell you, when you do become a political consultant, Dwight, you will realize that often there's a wide chasm between what you think a person who is leading should do and what that person does do. And I think that in all of this, there is an abundance of realism in the way that I speak, because there are many things that leaders ought to do. And often they will do what they prefer to do for reasons best known to themselves. And I think the best thing to do is to leave it there. But as I said, I think that you're spot on in terms of your analysis of the situation, both the success of Prime Minister Mitchell. And let me take this opportunity again to congratulate him. I think that he's a shining example of what leadership in the Caribbean needs to become. And I really do wish him well. But yeah, the other side, we agree there. In terms of the voter turnout, let's not worry too much in terms of the actual numbers in terms of the voter turnout, because you remember in the Caribbean that there's always in Grenada, there is a large number of people who are on the voters list that cannot vote because they're not available to vote. A lot of them are dead. Some of them migrated overseas. The voters list in the Caribbean are notoriously dirty, and Grenada is no different. I think a lot of those people were unable to vote. What I often do in my analysis is I don't look so much at the absolute number of people who voted over people who were unable to vote, but what I do is look at the change and the difference between the previous election and this one, because that is likely to give you a better idea of the actual numbers of people participating. And the fact is that the numbers are down. Why did those people not vote? And my sense is a lot of those people, and I don't know whether you read you had poll of the poll that was done by Dr. Pierre. And one of the points he was making is that the NDC base is smaller than the NNP base in Grenada. What I can tell you is that in political parties in the Caribbean, like the PNM and the BLP in Barbados and whatnot, usually those parties that dominate have large bases. And the way that they lose elections is because those people don't convert, but those people withhold their support. And invariably, you can see it in terms of the voter turnout. And I can tell you that you can dismiss it if you want, if you think that I'm trying to make excuses, but the diminished voter turnout in several of those instances have been responsible for the fact that you had these kinds of victories, because a lot of the people, the difference in 4% is a lot of, in my opinion, an unrealized NNP support that people were just simply not comfortable voting because they saw no reason why they should vote against somebody who appeared to be, a nice person or someone that could do a reasonable job, because the NDC studied this thing and they understood that they needed to put someone in that place. So that would be my sense of it. And the reason that I said there's an opening, and of course somebody in the chat was poo-pooing that and saying that it's not opening, he kicked down the door. The reality is that what you have to do now, Dwight, and if you are close to Prime Minister Mitchell, you can tell him this, is you need to understand that what you have is an opening to begin a conversation. If you have that conversation successfully over the next 5 years, it's a home run you're hitting, right? If you don't have that conversation successfully, you're going to be right back where you started before, like Tillman Thomas. But my thing is, have the conversation, because a person who says, I'm not prepared to vote in DC and stay at home is a person that in the next campaign that can say, I can vote, an MP that can vote NDC, and essentially can allow you to build the kind of political institution that is rivaling and comparing the NNP of the past. So I want to thank you for bringing me on the program and giving me the opportunity to try to talk a bit of the analytical stuff. I enjoyed being on with Ken and also with Dwight, and to hear his perspective and to assure him that if ever he decides to give up journalism, he has a job waiting for him in political consulting.
Yeah, thank you so much. Peter, we appreciate your time. So we went a little bit over time, but you allowed us the time to do that. So we appreciate you. Thanks again. We'll keep in touch. All right.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that was a conversation here on election, but there's still a lot to be said. Earlier today, the former Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, released a video. I'm going to play back this video and then I'll open up calls at the end to further discuss. This is the video that was just released by the New National Party.
Ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers all, I just wanted to say thanks to all the supporters, volunteers, friends who worked so hard and diligently during the just ended elections campaign. I know there is a level of disappointment among our people because the results were not exactly what we all expected. But in spite of that, I'm eternally grateful for all your contributions. The support you have shown me in particular, not just during the campaign, but through all the years, has been remarkable. While the sting of this defeat hurts, and it really hurts, we all have to remain engaged for the prospects of this nation. Depend, of course, on the contribution of each and every one of you. For me, personally, I would always be inspired by your commitment to the general cause of nation building. As a party, the New National Party will survive this current setback as we still remain the perennial dominant force in national politics. This is underscored by the fact that in one of our worst nights, we still got 28,959 of the popular votes, just a little less than the winner. But there is no doubt that we have to reform and reorganize and re-energize this movement called the NNP. There's a need for no recrimination, to have to be frank and honest in those deliberations. The reviews and discussions have already begun and will no doubt continue in the immediate period. It must be clear, we are entering a traditional phase, and I see my fundamental role as facilitating a new emergent leadership that will ensure that the NNP remains at the vanguard of the people's aspiration. I will meet immediately with the new parliamentary caucus. Meetings will also take place with the national executive, and will continue to listen to the rank and file and other well-wishers, including all our friends abroad in the diaspora. As leader, it is my responsibility to ensure that the party remains strong and viable, and always ready to take up the mantle of governance again. On Friday morning, I spoke to the new Prime Minister, Mr. Dick Mitchell, and I conveyed the best wishes of the party. We understand that the people have spoken, and so we are willing to give the new government support in promoting policies and programs that will be for the benefit of this nation. We shall play a constructive role as opposition, understanding that any opposition will be on philosophical issues that we think might be in the better interests of this beautiful country. While we understand every new government will come with different ideas and approaches, we are urging the new administration to positively consider not dismantling programs that especially benefit the ordinary people of this country. We must always stand up and look out for what the Bible describes as the least among us. And that shall be our foremost mission now, and it has always been so, and forever. Take care of yourselves, and may God continue to richly bless this beautiful nation of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. I thank you all.
So yeah, that was a message from the New National Party.
Ladies.
Yeah, that was a message from the NNP that was sent out, transmitted earlier today via their Facebook page. Now, before this message came out, guys, there were messages that was put out by other individuals from the now opposition party, right? And I mentioned yesterday that I would have spoken about it, particularly and directed to two of the MPs, current MPs in the NNP, Emmeline Pierre and Kate. Now, Emmeline Pierre, you guys saw the video where she came out and she was speaking about pain. The pension must be paid immediately. And although, I mean, in opposition, I guess opposition is just to oppose and just be on the opposing side. But Miss Emmeline Pierre, the party has not, not the party, the cabinet have not even formed as yet. You are making these requests of the NDC that has not even put together a cabinet as yet. They have not even sat down or name any ministers as yet. So although all of these things, and I'm not saying that it should not be done, the message to Emmeline Pierre is give it some time. Allow the party, allow the NDC to formulate, at least sit in their seat before those demands should be made. And you know that should be the process. Now, Kate, a message to Kate. I heard you. You were very passionate. And nothing wrong about being passionate for what you stand for, but it doesn't have to come through you, right? And I don't believe, again, you're passionate about it, and it's quite possibly you were trying to hype up the crowd about it, but as little children don't say, it don't work so. It doesn't work so. Now to the NDC, the leadership of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Deacon Mitchell, don't believe that this is a rubber stamp, that the media is just going to be passive with all and everything that you say or do. The media, primarily, right here and right along. My focus is to ensure that the parliamentarian elected officials do what they say that they said that they was going to do. We're going to hold your foot to the fire and ensure that the people get all the things that you promised them. And we are going to have some objections, and we won't shy away or muzzle the objections. We are going to come out and speak about the objections, no matter who it is. We are for the people. We are not for the government. We are not for any particular government, any particular administration. We are for the people. And we are going to hold them responsible for what they campaign on. And that's our pledge to you. All right? I think I had one more call on the line. Let me see. I think that call went. On behalf of all our team here at Ride Along, we say thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for calling. Thanks for being a part of our program. We have an interesting, we have an interview. I'm not sure when that interview would be held. Possibly tomorrow. I'm not sure. I'll let you guys know. But we'll have an interview with the new Prime Minister very soon. And we're going to advertise it. Maybe tomorrow, but hopefully, definitely this week. We should have that interview lined up. All right? All right? Okay. All you calm down. And to the people, the supporters, the people who support the NDC and the people who support the NNP. At the end of the day, guys, we are all Grenadian. No matter what, we are all Grenadian. Just have different political affiliation, but that doesn't make them bad, right? So stop the name calling, as Deacon Mitchell said, as Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell said. The dog fighting is over. The boxing match is over. It's now time for some serious nation building. We have to now come together. Whether you live in the diaspora, whether you live in Grenada, local on island, wherever you are as a Grenadian, everybody should come together. All hands on deck to build Grenada. I believe that all of us should also work in the best interest of seeing that this government succeed, whether you support this government or not. Because saying that you wish that the government don't succeed or you will never support this government is actually shooting yourself in the foot. You're actually saying that you're shooting yourself in the foot. What? You're not going to go back to Grenada? You're not going to spend the money in Grenada? The truth and the fact about it, guys, no matter which government is in power, we are all Grenadian. We have the success of the government is the success of all of us. All right? The failure of this government is a failure of all of us. We cannot, no matter if you support the NDC or not support the NDC, no one should say or articulate or even utter those words that they wish that this government would fail. Because you're ultimately shooting yourself in the foot. You're ultimately shooting yourself in the foot. We have to work hard to make sure that that the government succeed. So everybody succeed at the end of the day. All right? Thank you guys for watching again, guys. Thanks for being a part of our program today. And let common sense prevail going forward, guys. The boxing match is over. It is over. The horse race is over. Now it's time for some serious nation building. Good night.
Chicks Export Limited, Toronto, Canada, shipping barrels and other cargo to Grenada in 3 weeks, including custom clearing and home delivery to anywhere in Grenada. They source, purchase, and ship new and used anything. Call or WhatsApp Eric, aka Greens, on 416-569-9755. That's 416-569-9755. Check us out on Facebook at Green Chicks Export or email us at greenchicksexport@gmail.com.
After 2 years, we are back. One stage, over 20 entertainers, all the elements of mass. It all comes to life.
Jab, not working on Juve.
Lava Man and friends, I am Mass. Limited early bird tickets are $30, regular tickets $45, VIP $300, more at the door. Get your tickets now. Tickets available at gotofed.com or all your regular box offices. Gates open 11 p.m. The ultimate mass experience. It's more paint, more powder, more mass. And after, it's the breakfast. Stay tuned for more details.
Williams Funeral Service serve you with dignity and compassion as you mourn. Every day, we embark on the journey of life, and one day, the journey will end. It's on that day that you can entrust the celebration of life of your loved ones to David Williams Funeral Service. Call 718-291-3823.
From Right Along Live, keeping you updated with everything happening in your world, from breaking news, election coverage, and a whole lot more. Now, do you have a business that you would like to market or advertise right here on our platform? Then give us a call at 718-701-5720 or inbox us right here on Right Along Live. Take your business to the next.
It's hard to imagine this is how 2020 started. But across the world, dozens were falling ill with a mysterious virus that would ultimately change life as we know it. Chinese health authorities are still working to identify the
The COVID-19 pandemic is now casting doubt over the 2021
As soon as it gets open, I can. 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 I'm tired, see home, I need a.
Why you talking the job must pay? All you understand, job must play.
Tell them party rum, ice, the place now one and right. Watch how the party turn up tonight. Because we out and bad and the people better, we causing trouble. Trouble, just watch how we causing trouble. Every
You don't carry the fire that my ancestors have
did the job. I was born in it. This is job, religion, job, religion. This is job, religion, job, religion. This is job, religion, job, religion. This is job, religion, job, religion.
Don't forget, if you play Monday Night Mass, Grenada Carnival Spice Mass Edition, you play Monday Night Mass with Amazing Colors. Amazing Colors, the trilogy. The trilogy, Monday Night Mass with Amazing Colors.